friends, and welcome back to the Rebel Show. We've got another good one for you. We're well into summer, just celebrated 4th of July, and we are thankful to live in a nation that's still mostly free and that we have a chance to fight back if we need to. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the history of the Second Amendment. It's part 2. We did that the other week. Here we are doing it again. So it's important to realize the Second Amendment and understand the logic behind it and some of the history of it. So, the Second Amendment was to protect what was frequently called the first law of nature, the right of self-protection. And you see this all through nature. You see it with animals, even a pet. If your pet has, like for instance, a cat has baby kittens, the parent may defend the kittens for a period of time while they're very young. If you are out in nature and there's a bear come up with cubs, that bear is going to defend the kittens. And you can tell it's an inalienable right, which means it's given by God and no inferior power can take it away. So something bigger than God would have to take that away, and that doesn't exist. So it's an inalienable right. Blah, blah, blah. Inalienable right. So realize the first law of nature is the right to protect yourself. And it's all the animals have it, so you can observe that it's there. And people have it too. But the problem is when people that think they're more important than you or more powerful than you, they come in and they can say that we are taking this away from you because we want to control you and do what we want with your life. And that is what our leadership who wrote these documents wanted to prevent. Tyrant leaders from taking over the lives and the private property of the people. So the Second Amendment isn't really about guns specifically. It's about the right to protect yourself and property. Now, Joe Biden thinks that the Second Amendment says what kind of people can and can't own guns, and what kind of guns they can and can't own. I would love him to explain that to me, and I'll wait. It's not going to happen because it doesn't say anything about that. The Second Amendment wasn't about controlling citizens at all. It's about confining government. That's what the Constitution is. And the Bill of Rights. It's to hinder government. We are a republic-style government limited by a constitution. So the government is limited to the box of the Constitution. It's not meant to control the citizens. So the Second Amendment isn't about guns. It's about the right that you have to protect yourself and your property. So when you think of it like that, you go, oh, infringing rights is more than just gun control. It's also, do you have any armor that you might need? Do you have the ammunition you need? Anything it would take to protect yourself would be needed. So if you were a caveman, it might be a pile of rocks near the entrance to the cave. Your family. And you might use rocks to do that. If you were a knight, you may use a sword and armor to protect yourself and your family. If you were a citizen of modern day, you might use a bulletproof vest and a rifle to protect your family. Whatever the need is, that Second Amendment protects whatever you need to protect yourself. So even governments allowed what they wanted. I wouldn't say allowed, but what they wanted back in the early days is they didn't have a standing army, so they needed local men and boys to defend the town or city or whatever it was. So they created the militias, right? It was the local militia. They could call them and say, we have trouble in this area, local neighborhoods, arm up and come over. So these armed groups became known as the militia. There was little difference between citizen militia and a military man because there wasn't a standing army. Now, a militia is a part of an organized armed force of a country liable to the call only in emergency, which is what they would do, a body of citizens organized for military service, or the whole body of able-bodied male citizens declared by law as being able to call themselves a military service. So any able-bodied person that was male, typically, nowadays we can easily have females in there, no problem, would be a militia. People that decide that, hey, we're going to band together and we're going to protect this area. So nowadays we could have local militias where we kind of have it now when we talk about neighborhood watch. It's similar, except they don't actually march around the neighborhood armed, ready to defend and protect. We almost don't need that type of thing, but it would be good to have it. The Second Amendment actually states here, a well-regulated militia. So I think we should be, each street, each neighborhood should have some kind of a militia ready to go to protect your street. being necessary to the security of a free state. So that's the important part. The security of a free state, protecting the free state of people. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right, so this is a right to the people. The people have it. To keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, where in there does it mention a gun? Does it mention a gun, a musket, or an AR-15 or anything? No, it doesn't. Notice in this amendment, the term military or army is not used. This is referring to citizens being well armed and practiced along with the necessary armor. So arms has a broader meaning than just weapon or gun. We kind of went into this a little bit, but the Encyclopedia Londiniensis, I'm pronouncing that wrong, but you can Google it, of 1810 states that arms had a broader meaning than does now, encompassing both weapons like swords, axes, and bows, and armor like mail helmets, gauntlets, and shields. So when you bear arms, you could pick up all of this different armor, and you may even have a sword, an axe, and a bow. You're bearing arms at that point. It extends to anything a man wears for his defense or takes into his hands or uses to strike or cast or throw at another. So a rock, you could bear arms. So if you think back in the Bible, David, when he went to kill Goliath, he took 5 smooth stones. He was bearing arms. All right. Machiavelli, I think is how you pronounce it, is an Italian diplomat, politician, and writer, and an advisor during the Renaissance concluded that most sustainable way to secure way for a leader to maintain power was to encourage citizens to be armed. So they wanted citizens to be armed during the Renaissance. Why? Because you could protect your nation. They could defend against invasion, keep the peace, and prevent rulers from turning against the people. Now, there's an interesting perspective. Defend against an invasion, keep the peace, and prevent rulers from turning against the people. Now, a well-armed citizenry now can defend against invasion. Citizens really don't keep the peace anymore, but they could, and prevent rulers from turning against the people. Now, we can debate that that's happening in the United States right now. I totally think it is. America has been given these duties to government. Think about this. This was originally the citizens of the people, and now we've given it to government. If America is disarmed, who is to help with the homeland invasion? I can't do anything. What am I going to throw a rock at a guy with a rifle? That's not going to help. How do citizens prevent tyrant takeover if we're not armed? What if a president comes in? It's happened in other nations recently. And if you don't have a way to defend yourself or at least try to defend and stop these people, they're just going to take over. Arms make it more difficult for the rich and powerful to suppress the lower class by force. And you can see that in the inner cities right now. It's just basically gangsters and stuff down in there. According to Machiavelli, the best deterrent against a tyrant would be the threat of thousands of armed citizens rising in rebellion. So they decide, you know what? You are infringing our rights and we're taking you off the throne. That's what's got to happen sometimes. Early America would inherit this tradition of arm ownership and protecting it in their constitution. So we know that this type of gun ownership and promoting gun ownership and training was something that was out there long before the United States. And so our founders liked that, and they put it in our Constitution because we needed to be a nation that protects ourselves. The bottom line is our American founding fathers, like some kings and leaders of the past, want the citizens to be armed in order to protect and preserve the property, their family, their community, and their nation. And I'd even add their faith also, because faith can be under attack. The Second Amendment was never about the military, but about limiting the government's ability to disarm the American citizen and commit acts of tyranny. So I just wanted to go through a few different things here. There's a lot of talk about assault weapons and semi-automatic and automatic type of guns, and we shouldn't be allowed. But here's some interesting things. Muskets were not the only gun available at the writing of the Second Amendment. There was also long guns and pistols. Muskets shot 3 rounds per minute. All right, that was a standard military weapon. In 1630, the Kalthoff family designed the Kalthoff repeating rifle, shooting 30 rounds per minute. That was in 1630. 1750, John Crookston invented the Crookston repeater, shooting 9 rounds in a matter of seconds. 1777, Joseph Belton designed the Belton flintlock, firing 30 to 60 rounds per minute. Wow, that's pretty fast. In 1779, Bartholomew Giardini invented the Giardini air rifle, shooting 22 to 30 rounds in 30 seconds, up to 150 yards, and this was used in the Austrian Army. In 1779, James Wilson invented the knock gun for the British Navy, shooting 7 shots with a single pull of the trigger. 7 with a single pull. So a lot of the technology we're seeing nowadays isn't really that new. It's just been refined a little bit. 1481, Leonardo da Vinci, who's ever heard of him, designed a multi-barreled, water-cooled, rapid-fire cannon 3 centuries before the Second Amendment was written. So you see gun technology and rapid fire was out there a long time ago. Here's a quote from William Pitt, Member of Parliament, 1783. Necessity is the plea of every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants and the creed of slaves. Whenever people are starting to tell you this is necessary, we have to do this for your protection or for whatever reason, for the good of all the people, this is the plea for infringement of rights. When they say you need to get vaccinated because it's for the best of everyone, it's do the right thing, do your part, that's the plea of a tyrant. Just be careful when you hear that. When they say it's necessary for us to disarm you for your protection or your safety, that's tyranny. All right? Stop it. Just stop doing it. Go study this stuff out. Learn these things. We're not in a new era. Things are the same. We may have guns and more higher powered guns, but there's always a powerful weapon. And it's the intent of the heart on how to use the weapon. And that's what we really need to be focused on, is the intent of the heart. So if you're interested in this type of stuff, continue learning your rights. Be an ambassador for gun rights and promote them whenever you can. And support people in the government who support the Second Amendment, or even become one yourself. Run for office, do something, make a difference, because people like us are the ones needed in government, and we're often the ones who don't want to be part of it. So I hope this was informative. I would recommend you research your own Second Amendment stuff. You can find tons of great books out there. And be well defended. And thank you very much.